Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today we're going to talk about one of the most important campaigns that is going on in the country. And guess what? It's not the presidential campaign. It is still too soon to be focusing on that. What we're going to talk about is the recall campaign for the District Attorney Pamela Price of Alameda County, because people are coming together to oust this person. Now, Alameda County, for those of you who are unaware, actually ends up covering Oakland mostly and some surrounding areas that make up the entirety of the county. But it is very important that we oust these district attorneys in these left-wing places so that we can show people that these policies are unpalatable everywhere. And Pamela Price right now is the most notable of these destructive forces in our country, and she needs to be removed. And leading this campaign are the victims of Pamela Price, the people that she refuses to meet with, the people whose killers she refuses to prosecute, and I'm all on board for it. But before we get into that, I just want to say thank you to everybody who signed up over on the website, actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Apple, Spotify, and Google's podcasting platform.
She's actively ignoring evidence in our case. Actively. My son's murder was on video. There were 5 witnesses.
Lori Moe's son Blake worked at Home Depot in Pleasanton when he was killed following an attempted shoplifting. On Tuesday, she joined a small group who officially submitted paperwork to begin the recall effort of Alameda County District Attorney Pamela Price.
Now, you guys should remember the story of Blake Moe's because we actually covered it on this channel. And in that story, if I'm recalling it correctly, a woman went in to steal a power drill charger. Blake Moe's, who was working in loss prevention at that Home Depot, ended up intercepting the woman. I believe she left the store, grabbed a firearm, came back in the store, and killed him for his troubles.
Blake's mom, Lori Moe's, choked back tears 6 weeks to the day her son, a loss prevention employee, was killed at this Pleasanton store. In that time, the family says District Attorney Pamela Price never reached out. It was only after consistent outreach on their part that a DA assigned to the case responded.
The phone call was that Pamela Price was not going to meet with us. She was not going to have a conversation with us, and we discussed my concerns about the charges.
Now, the perpetrator in that case, Benicia Knaps, actually fled the scene after committing this heinous murder, got in her car where, by the way, her boyfriend and her 2-year-old child was, and they took off running away. And Pamela Price, despite the fact that this was a vicious murder over a power drill charger, decided that she wasn't going to charge this woman seriously. She was going to look for the lowest possible sentence. She refused to meet with this family, and they've had enough, and they decided to put their stamp of approval on this recall position. And guess what? My stamp of approval is on it as well.
She is failing to charge our case properly. She is only charging possession of a gun. She's not charging death and discharge. This woman shot my child within 2 foot in his heart, looking at his face after he turned to her. How do you tell me that she's not ignoring that evidence?
Can you believe that? She's charging a possession, not really with the death, even though this is clearly and obviously an intentional murder. Now, to be clear, Pamela Price did in fact run on being soft on crime. She did in fact run on being pro-criminal. She did in fact run on not charging these enhancements. But to me, somebody who values a human life of a guy not making that much money, just recently married, by the way, Blake Moe's, working at Home Depot, less than a charger for a power drill, does not deserve any mercy, does not deserve any grace. She came in for an armed confrontation over a power drill charger while her 2-year-old baby was in the car. The idea that this woman's life is valuable, it's worth preserving, that she has a path to redemption that we should go soft on her for because she's already making her way towards that path, is absurd and insane in every possible way. She murdered Blake Moe's in cold blood, shot him in the heart over a power drill charger. A power drill charger.
Blake was set to get married in August and aspired to be a police officer. He was active with the Boy Scouts his entire life. Lori said her son loved his job, though it could be dangerous.
And Pamela Price, despite 5 eyewitnesses, despite security video, can't seem to charge this to the fullest extent of the law. Pamela Price, despite having overwhelming evidence of this person's guilt, can't seem to prosecute this in a reasonable way based on the evidence that is presented.
Carl Chan, a well-known AAPI community leader, is part of a coalition known as SAFE, or Save Alameda for Everyone, which is leading the recall effort. He says they understand that DA Price has only been in office for less than a year, and they know that the reform effort she was elected to implement will take time to take hold. But he says they need to act now.
The crime issue is getting so bad, it's getting worse. But it could be even get much worse than this now. If we don't do something now, and I'm sure that, so many people will be impacted directly.
So they also bring out an Asian person. They say he's from the AAPI. Honestly, I don't care. It's Asians and Pacific Islanders. So East Asians and Filipinos. That's who's in this group in order to back up the recall campaign. And this makes a lot of sense based on the stories that we covered of Pamela Price refusing to charge criminals seriously who attack elderly Asian people in Alameda County, specifically in Oakland. Obviously, if you're trying to advocate for the Asian community, you should definitely go after a district attorney who has made it her sole purpose to never charge those perpetrating crimes against that community, as Pamela Price does. Remember, we did a story of somebody who just sucker punched a 76-year-old woman in the face. There was no clear motive. Initially, it was recommended that they charge hate crime charges. Forget about what you think about hate crime charges. Just imagine what would have happened if this was a white person without any clear motivation sucker punching a 76-year-old Asian woman versus a black person, but Pamela Price immediately dropped those hate crime charges. She asserted, as a matter of fact, that this person who had a pattern of attacking Asian people specifically clearly had no hate in his heart. And again, forget about what you think about hate crime laws in general. Just think about the inconsistency in the charging. That's what this woman does. She protects the criminal over and over and over again.
Virginia Nishida, whose husband Kevin Nishida was killed, says she supports criminal justice reform, but she argues DA Price hasn't been tough on crime.
The public defender's office, defends the defendant. She's also, defending the defendant, with these short-term, sentencing with this no enhancements, taking away special circumstances. And I just wonder, well, who's defending us?
Now, a lot of people are going to get red flags. They're going to say, oh, well, she supported criminal justice reform, and therefore she voted for it. But the thing is, as somebody who, by the way, was on board for certain criminal justice reforms, although I'm more knowledgeable, so I saw where these candidates were going, so I never would have backed these people, the wolves in sheep's clothing. Most of these people didn't want them to be cracking down on marijuana arrests. They were worried about racism in the criminal justice system, and never did they imagine, not even once, that they were going to go soft on violent offenders, including murderers, in the way that Pamela Price did. I talked about a case, and it's so shocking that she wasn't immediately booted from office just based on this one case, where Pamela Price offered a sweetheart plea deal that would have saw a triple murderer out in like 7 years, based on the fact that she said, oh, we definitely couldn't prove these cases, even though the evidence was clear and overwhelming against the perpetrator. This was a guy who killed somebody for hire, so acted as a hitman. He killed somebody who was a state's witness in a relative's case, and he killed somebody in a road rage dispute, or it was a carjacking gone wrong, not road rage. And all of these murders had witnesses and clear-cut evidence, and she could have pushed for a more significant plea deal against this individual if she wanted to go in that direction. She got 1 count of manslaughter when the guy was up for 3 murders, life without the possibility of parole, and if California actually used the death penalty, clearly and obviously a death penalty worthy case. But not only did Pamela Price offer the sweetheart deal to this defendant, but when the judge rejected it, when the judge, by the way, Democrat district attorney for Alameda County, was his old position, had been on the bench for decades, said that this was ridiculous, this was absurd, Pamela Price took revenge on the judge by promising to use a maneuver that the prosecutor can do in the state of California, where they request a new judge at the beginning of each and every case in order to essentially blackmail that judge into complying. And guess what? That worked. That guy got that plea deal. He got that soft on crime punishment, and he's going to be out on the streets in Oakland, despite the fact that he has 3 bodies under his belt.
Now, DA Price will have up to 2 weeks to respond. The group then has 160 days to gather more than 90,000 signatures of people who are registered voters in the county before the measure would qualify for the ballot, and at a cost of close to $8 million.
So look, it is a tough hill. It is a tough hurdle to get. That 92,000 signatures that they need, and they have to be verified signatures, by the way, represent about 10% of the registered voters in order to get this on the ballot initiative, and they only have 160 days. But this is a fight worth having. It is really important that we target these district attorneys and remove them from office as fast as possible. It worked for Chesa Boudin in San Francisco. It can work in Oakland. Now look, don't think this is going shouldn't be easy. Just because it worked for Chesa in the city of San Francisco does not mean that it's automatically going to work in Oakland, despite the fact that Oakland might be less progressive, less liberal than the city of San Francisco. Pamela Price is already painting this recall campaign as racist, trying to undermine democracy, and all the other dirty tactics in order to obfuscate the fact that she's doing a horrible job as district attorney, and the victims are absolutely sick of her antics. So it's going to be a tough fight. We saw after Lori Lightfoot was ousted from the mayorship of the city of Chicago, people took their foot off the gas pedal, and guess what happened? A worse candidate, Brandon Johnson, ended up being installed by the voters into that position based largely on the fact that Brandon Johnson ran a very race-based identitarian kind of campaign. This could work right here. Pamela Price has the black woman angle. That is something that Chesa Boudin just didn't have. She is going to rally around these kinds of people, the Black Lives Matter organizations, and all these other woke kind of things in order to back her up, because all those organizations back the criminals. Now, credit where credit is due. This was launched after the NAACP actually spoke out against what's going on in Oakland, actually spoke out against Pamela Price. So it's not like it's going to be as easy for her to rally everybody in her racial group in order to just label this racist. It's kind of hard to say that the NAACP is a racist organization when it's one of the oldest organizations that advocate for black Americans in the history of the country. And they've had enough with her. They've had enough with Oakland. They've had enough with the criminals. And they released that very powerful, very strongly worded letter. And hopefully this will be enough to overwhelm Price. But you got to get it on board with the signatures. You got to back the campaign. If you're in that area, if you're a registered voter, first of all, thoughts and prayers, if I'm being perfectly honest, but sign the petition. Make sure you get your neighbors to sign the petition. Make sure you do everything you have to do, and don't forget that they will all of a sudden care about signature verifications when it comes to this, just like they did in order to defeat the Gascon petition in Los Angeles to cover that county, and that's why that recall election didn't happen. But the battle should be joined, everybody should be united, and if you don't think this matters because you live nowhere near there, you live in a red state, make no mistake about it, it is important to send a message that even these policies in a place like California, in a place like Oakland, are unpalatable. This is how you turn the tide. If they lose elections, if they lose power based on it, guess what? They'll stop doing it. They'll be put on notice. And this is the perfect case study, just like San Francisco with Chesa Boudin, for us to prove that point, for us to prove that crime matters. It is a local issue. And if your local officials aren't on board, then we're going to send them packing. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on my social media. Support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the recall of Pamela Price. Let's get to work. Till next time.